to be discerning with whether they need more training or more equipping, and to do that in a way that is not completely embarrassing to them, or really difficult for them to handle, or where they feel like they've just massively failed. Because the truth is that if you've thrown them in a high pressure, high risk scenario right from the get-go, that's not on them, that's on you. So I think this video will be a little bit shorter than some of our other ones, because I just have two main things that I want to cover with this category of entrusting responsibility. And the first of these is that entrusting people with responsibility, especially the people we're discipling, is one of the main goals of discipling people, right? To train them up so that they can be well equipped to serve in some aspect of ministry and in life that reflects walking with Christ. And so if you see all throughout the New Testament what Paul, the example that Paul is setting, right, is that he's going out and he's establishing these churches and he's equipping people to eventually give them leadership responsibilities, right? One of the most intimate relationships we see with him doing that, a person who Paul does that with, is with Timothy, right? We get to see a really good picture of how Paul is encouraging Timothy, how he's discipling him and building him up so that he can entrust him with responsibility. Timothy is someone who first starts to kind of come along with Paul in his ministry and see what it's like and to visit the churches. And eventually Timothy shows to be trustworthy and someone who can handle a little bit of responsibility, and ultimately becomes responsible for visiting several of the different churches or communicating on behalf of Paul. And so that doesn't happen if Paul doesn't have the intentionality to give Timothy that responsibility, to continue to train him, equip him, so that he can eventually basically fill Paul's role in the church ministry. And so often, I don't know, I think when we're thinking about why churches aren't growing, or they're kind of getting stuck, or even why churches are oftentimes shrinking, a lot of that comes back to an unwillingness to entrust other people with responsibility, right? To ask them to do things, to train them up so that they're well equipped to serve in those different ways, or because we want so much control, we want everything to be done a certain way, and so we just don't feel like we can give them the freedom and the responsibility of taking leadership roles in specific areas. So I think it's incredibly important to think about this part when it comes to the discipleship outline, like you would when it comes to your children, right? When you have a baby, you are caring for them, you're nurturing them, right? You're doing everything. They're doing nothing, right? They are pooping and peeing and throwing up and crying, right? They're not doing very much. You're there though. They see that, they feel that, they experience your presence, but slowly and surely they start growing and they start being able to do more things, right? You start teaching them how to walk, right? And giving them opportunities, and encouraging them, right? And you're holding their hands while they kind of take their steps, and you're celebrating when they do it, right? This is the same way that we should go about entrusting responsibility to people in life, in ministry, right? We don't want them to stay as babies who just poop and pee and cry, right? We want to equip them and train them up to be strong, godly disciples who are able to serve an important role in the church and to serve people well in a really meaningful way. And we don't do that when we don't entrust people with responsibility and give them opportunities to actually have some sort of control in how things are taking place. Now, of course, just like with children, this is not always a super straightforward or a simple process, right? Because the truth is that this toddler who's learning how to walk, once they learn how to walk, well, then they start getting into stuff, right? Or they start exploring the house and they start getting close to stairs, and then they might fall down the stairs, right? And so you have to put more safeguards in place with the increased freedom, right? There's more safeguards or more things you have to be mindful of, or things that they need to be trained up with or equipped, right? And they get older and older, and you just keep kind of moving, right? You give them more and more responsibility, giving them more training and safeguards, and you kind of see where they're at. And so that's why this part of entrusting responsibility is an incredibly important balancing act, right? So first, right, you got to do it. This has to be part of the goal of discipling, is so that they are equipped to be on their own, right? They are equipped to do something meaningful without you holding their hand, and having them rely on other relationships, but most importantly, their relationship with Jesus Christ, right? Their relationship with God, to inform how they should serve and how they can bless people and be discerning and all those things, right? But the second part of that is the balancing act, right? You will never know what people can or can't do until you ask them to do it. And so that's the hard part, is that you do have to ask someone to do something, right? You have to give them responsibility. You have to give them more responsibility many times than you're sure they can handle, in order to find out if they can handle it, right? And I think this is kind of the walk we have with a middle schooler in our house, right? Is they're really pushing the boundaries of what type of freedom they would like to have, and they want to try all the things. They want it all, right? But you have to put safeguards, but at the same time, you're not really sure what they can handle without having them try it out. And so you do that in really safe ways that aren't going to cause a lot of problems, right? It's not hard. It's not going to cause a huge problem if you ask someone to serve by, being like the third teacher in a classroom, right, of kids during church, right? There's several other competent adults who are there and who have done it before, right? And so it's really easy for them. They get to assist in a really low, just like low pressure, low risk way. And based on how they do, you can get an idea of if they can handle more, right? And so maybe you ask them to co-teach a class, right? But at the same time, if they try to co-teach a class and it goes very badly, then you might have to, walk things back a little bit, take back some of the control until you make sure that they've been equipped or taught how to do those specific things. Or, like I said too, you train them and equip them for the specific roles you want them to take, and then you give that to them and you evaluate, which will be the next one we talk about next week, the next category. You evaluate how they do, and then you see where the teaching needs to be, or if there's more opportunity for entrusting relationship or entrusting responsibility. And so, like I said, it's this fine balance of giving people a little bit more than you're sure for sure they can handle, to see if they can, while also not being afraid to kind of walk it back and say, okay, I really love that you want to jump in here and you want to do all these things, but we're not quite there. While not, helping them to not feel too frustrated and to feel like, oh, you just don't trust them at all, right? So you've got to walk this tightrope of, look, I want you to grow and I want you to be competent in these ways. I think this will be good for you and healthy. This should be the end goal. But I also want to make sure that you're not well overtaxed, that you're in high pressure, like really high pressure, really high risk scenarios, but you're getting them started in lower risk, low pressure scenarios to see how they handle more and more pressure and more risk and more responsibility, right? And never being afraid to either walk it forward a little bit more, even if it can be inconvenient, right? You want people to be able to branch out and to grow in their leadership, right? Even if that causes your church to say, hey, maybe we need to make some changes to accommodate this person's special gift in leadership, or, to also say, hey, this person is not ready, right? To walk this back and to be discerning with whether they need more training or more equipping, and to do that in a way that is not completely embarrassing to them, or really difficult for them to handle, or where they feel like they've just massively failed. Because the truth is that if you've thrown them in a high pressure, high risk scenario right from the get-go, that's not on them, that's on you. And so you need to be cautious. You need to walk this balance, this fine line of entrusting people with responsibility, being willing to give people more than maybe what you quite think they're equipped for, while also not giving them too much, and giving it too fast, so that their character isn't actually in line with the amount of responsibility they have. You want their character to be at a level where they can be entrusted to handle the job that you're entrusting them to handle. So hopefully that was helpful to you. And if you have any more questions, feel free to ask a question in the comment and we can answer some of those questions for you. But we also ask that if this video was helpful to you, that you like and subscribe. Check it out for more videos. If you still haven't gotten the discipleship outline, I don't know what you're doing. All you need to do is look in down below in our description, and you can find you can sign up with your email to get the discipleship outline emailed to you. And if you stick around, you'll get a weekly newsletter of helpful resources, books, things like that to help you in your discipleship ministry, because we want to help train and equip people so that you can establish a culture of servant leadership in your church or ministry. So thanks for sticking around and watching the video. We'll catch you next time.